Tuesday, June 16th.
Time for the minister to settle his debt with the communist government and not settle it on the back of Canadians.
The serve has been extended, and so is 30 more days of the border closure with the U.S. or limited closure. Now, here we have yesterday.
Is someone running this party, this country correctly in this government?
Mr. Speaker, absolutely, we are running this country and we are supporting our economy. In fact, we appreciate that Canada currently is experiencing its greatest economic crisis since the Great Depression.
And I just want to say to the member and to all members, the reason why I could not control myself was the Prime Minister used the word embarrassment in answering a foreign affairs question, and it just made me think of the India trip.
I believe, Mr. Speaker, throughout this unprecedented pandemic, we have been open and transparent about all the measures we put forward. We've updated the Finance Committee.
Go back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Long way of saying no, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has pursued a policy of appeasement in pursuit of a personal vanity product at the UN. In the process, he's cozied up to dictators and human rights violators. He's abandoned Israel and committed funding to UNRWA, an organization whose schools have been used as storage facilities for Hamas rockets to be used against Israeli civilians, and whose facilities have served as breeding grounds for racism and anti-Semitism. He has apologized for the Iranian regime when they shot down a plane full of Canadian citizens, and he refuses to list the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity. So, what's the point of having a seat at the table if you have to sell out Canadian principles to get there?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see that Conservatives have kept with the Harper approach to international diplomacy. The failed presence of Canada on the world stage was an embarrassment for many Canadians for many, many years. And that's why when we took office 5 years ago, we demonstrated the kind of leadership on values that Canadians expected, and we will continue to work around the world to defend multilateralism.
We have a point of order, Ms. May.
This being a committee, we can have a point of order during what would have been question period, but I am not sitting that far away from the Prime Minister, and I'm sorry, but Andrew Scheer used to be the Speaker of the House. He should show better decorum.
We have a point of order coming from Mr. 𝗕𝗄s.
Mr. Speaker, on the same point of order, it is disgusting for the leader of the Green Party to use decorum as an excuse to interrupt the leader of the opposition in the middle of critical lines of questioning. The leader of the Green Party knows the rules of this House and shouldn't be abusing them to advance a partisan agenda.
Getting into debate, and I do want to point out that the time had run out, and we're now moving on to the next line of questions. The point of order, Mr. Scheer.
I appreciate the Honourable Leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, for that reminder. When I was Speaker, I always appreciated her help and advice about how to improve decorum in here. And I just want to say to the member and to all members, the reason why I could not control myself was the Prime Minister used the word embarrassment in answering a foreign affairs question, and it just made me think of the India trip.
I believe we're getting into debate and arguments.
Trudeau was at the cottage, and he also showed up to Parliament. This is a crazy day. He's at work. More to follow.
We rolled out measures. We would need to improve them and tweak them, and that's exactly what we've been doing over the past 3 months. We needed to make measures happen quickly for Canadians, and we did, but we continued to improve, to make additions and amendments so that more people could get the help they need, including with the proposed legislation last week that expanded the reach of the wage subsidy to more businesses. Unfortunately, the Conservatives didn't even want us to debate that particular piece of legislation.
Mr. Scheer.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, it was Liberals who said no to the motion to allow this Parliament to sit to debate that motion. And even in that legislation, they refused to allow businesses who have made acquisitions to access the program. Now, when we look at the rent relief program, it is so difficult to apply for that many landlords are refusing to bother, leaving even more small businesses to fall through the cracks. In fact, of the $3 billion allocated to the rent relief program, only $39 million have been paid out. That's less than 2%. Now, the Prime Minister is still using talking points from April. It's now June, and he's refused to fix these programs, and he's successfully talked out the calendar on the days that the House of Commons could meet to discuss these programs. So when will he make these changes to get more help to Canadians who need it?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Throughout this pandemic, we have constantly been updating and expanding our various programs. We recognize in conversations with the premiers how important it is to make sure that we're working together, provinces and federal government, on issues like rent subsidies, where commercial rent is indeed a provincial jurisdiction. Many provinces have moved forward with the eviction bans that are necessary to go along with this, and we will continue to work with provinces to make sure that we're getting Canadians the help they need.
Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians cannot wait. He has run down the clock on parliamentary sittings, and he still refuses to make these changes to get more help to Canadians. Now, Mr. Speaker, today we learned that 𝗕𝗲𝘄𝘀 has installed wallway technology in downtown Ottawa. There are over 80 sites across the National Capital Region that have wallway technology installed. Some of these sites are very near sensitive government institutions like government departments, the National Research Council, RCMP headquarters, and the Bank of Canada. How long has the Prime Minister known that wallway technology has been installed in the Ottawa area?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first off, on the issue of Parliament, Parliament has been meeting 4 times a week over the past many weeks, and members of the opposition have been able to continue to ask questions on COVID-19 and on a broad range of subjects. And indeed, every 2 weeks, the Finance Department puts forward the full, transparent measures of what we've done at Finance Committee so that parliamentarians can study it. We are continuing to work in this crisis. At the same time, on... sorry?
I'm sorry.
At the same time, in regards to Huawei technology, there are strict rules for companies to follow, and we assume that they all will follow those.
Yeah. Okay, we'll pause for a second, stop the clock. I want to remind the honourable members who are joining us virtually that heckling really does disrupt the whole session, and your face does come up, and we do see who it is, so I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And now we'll go back to Mr. Scheer. We have 1 minute and 10 seconds left. Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister is bragging about accountability and transparency, will he table an economic update before the House rises?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
There will be no fiscal announcement at all. They're basically going to free ride it and say it's the pandemic and we don't need to issue one. Now, here's another impassioned speech by MP Harder.
Professed that, quote, Canadians want their members of parliament to be effective voices for their communities in Ottawa and not merely mouthpieces for an all too powerful Prime Minister, end quote. As it stands, however, he has shut down Parliament effectively. He has stripped us, the opposition, of our privileges and our powers. Sadly, Mr. Trudeau has become the all too powerful Prime Minister that he once warned against. A government that does not allow for effective opposition is not functioning in the best interest of Canadians. It is operating in the best interest of itself and even more so the interest of the Prime Minister. Canadians deserve to flourish in a democracy, not merely survive under the autocracy that this Prime Minister has created.
Stay tuned. We have some more to follow in the House of Commons. There's a lot going on. And will the foreign minister show up today?